Hello, Global Theater. My name is Jerry Fielka. Today's November 17, 2023. We want to thank Rob Grant and his amazing podcast, I'm Probably Wrong About Everything. Also want to thank Dmitry Rimsky for introducing me to today's guest, Michael Morgan. What a pleasure. Where in the heck are you calling in from, Michael?
I wonder that myself. I'm in Amherst, Massachusetts, where only the H is silent, in beautiful Western Massachusetts.
How cool is that? First question is, what is the best thing for a human being?
You know, I cheated.
That's all right.
I looked at 3 or 4 of your videos, and I might as well see what they're about. And I noticed you start out with that question all the time, and people go like, and I didn't listen to the responses, but I love looking at their faces because it's a wonderful question.
That is great. You didn't listen to them. You know, for years, I would never, people would go, can I get the questions in advance? I go, nope.
No.
And then there was none online, and I didn't want people. Now it's evident anybody can go and watch them, and you can tell when people are prepped. But however.
I'm not prepped. I spent about 15 seconds on this, but I noticed you asked that often, and I was just fascinated by their responses because they're facial responses. It's one of those questions. It's not like you walk around with an answer in your head. You know, it's not like, what's your favorite pizza? Or, or what color shoes do you wear? Oh, I know the answer to that. This is something they've never thought about. And there's also an ambiguity to the questions. Like, what does that mean? And I love the way you just kind of put it there and let them squirm.
Yeah.
And it's great. And I really like that. So I didn't think it through, but it seems to me that the best thing about the question is it's incomplete.
Yeah.
It's one of those, do you walk to school or carry a lunch questions?
Yeah.
Because what is the best
thing for a human being?
What is the best thing for a human to do in the world? What is the best thing a human being can be for themselves?
Yeah.
The best way to care and feed, like a plant, a human being, you could interpret it in all those different ways.
Yeah.
And I don't have set prepared answers for any of those, but I think one of the best things a human being can do in the world, which is one of the hardest things to do, is to be kind to people.
Yes.
To treat people with respect. And I don't think we all do that all the time. And some of us may try to or think it's a good thing. And it is a good thing, but it's hard to do. Best thing you can do for yourself, you find ways to make yourself happy, but there's more to life than being happy. And there's contentment, and there's, I'm happy today, I just did this. But that's not necessarily long-term happy. That's just a mood that comes and goes. But then, what is the best thing for a human to live and to thrive is probably, eating and sleeping in a reasonable way and having social interaction and having fun. For some people, it's stretching their brains. For some people, it's stretching their bodies. And I don't know the answer to that question, but it's a great question.
But Michael, it was so good because right off the bat, you anticipate a lot we're going to talk about. But I have had that. What's the best thing for a human being? Guy said pizza.
If I'm going to go there, I'll say steamed clams if we're talking about meat.
And we had some pretty dang good pizza at your place.
Oh, yeah, we did. Yeah.
What's your favorite form of information, how it comes into you?
I read a lot of stuff online. I don't know if it's my favorite form, but it's certainly my most common. I read a lot of daily blogs and newsletters that people put out about political stuff. I read mainstream media to see what they're saying. I read alternative media. So I don't know if it's my favorite way. Sometimes I just like coming up with new ideas that are new information for myself that come out of nowhere. And that's one way to get information. I don't know where it comes from. But what I do most often is just scan a bunch of different, mostly print sources online.
Yeah. Michael, did you become a reader, one, because your parents told you to, two, they did it as an example? Or
my parents read all the time. Yeah. My father read lots and lots of nonfiction.
Yeah.
My mother was always reading like dumb romantic fiction books, And I have read a lot of books in my life, but probably in the last 20 years, I don't read as many books. I read a lot of articles, research articles, and magazine articles and online articles, but not as many books lately. I haven't been drawn to books.
Yeah. Why do you think humans collect information?
Okay, that's a good one. Um, because they can.
Very good.
It's kind of a natural thing. You see patterns. You see, oh boy, if I put my hand on this fire, it hurts like hell. That's information.
Yeah.
And because we learn things, well, animals learn things too, but we can write them down. There came a time, for the first time, we could write down text for a long time. I don't know what year it started. We making little cave drawings, and I don't know what year that was. But when Gutenberg invented the movable print of the Bible, it suddenly became possible not just to write it down, but to make copies.
Yeah.
Infinite numbers of exact copies, and to share it really widely, to distribute it over long periods of time and wide areas of space. And that made tremendous transformations in social organization and in terms of power and everything. So that was a way to collect information. Before that, individuals could have information. Information was precious. Certain people could have it. Priests could have it. Others could have it. Their own texts. But suddenly everybody could have it. So then it became possible to collect information. It became a habit, and it's a natural thing we do.
Do you think that was really good? You touched on so much. The Gutenberg galaxy.
Yeah.
So do you think this need or want to collect information is more innate or more invented?
I think it's probably cultural. I think it probably varies in different cultures. We count a lot in this culture because we can. We have the technology to do it. Computers let us do it really easily. I don't think that's necessarily the case in other cultures where there's as much of an emphasis on synthesizing and running big data, collecting things like that.
Yeah.
So I don't know how much is ever innate in humans and how much is social. I think it's always an interaction of the two. But I also would overlay cultural variation on top of that.
Beautiful. Yeah. Some of these first questions are more this or more that. In one woman said a couple of months ago, the word more doesn't function in your question. Because, I know it's both, and I appreciate that, and I'm more than willing to hear that out.
Yeah.
And these are just,
at the same time, some people feel really strongly that everything is innate or that everything is socialized. So
yeah. Do thoughts create emotions?
I was going to say, of course, but then again, emotions are thoughts themselves. Well, emotions are feelings, but emotions create thoughts, and thoughts create emotions. I mean, you think something and it makes you scared or worried about something. That's an emotion you're getting from a thought.
Yeah.
And you're feeling emotions that gives you all kinds of different thoughts. So I have trouble unraveling that whole thinking, feeling thing, which comes first, which is dominant, which is which.
Yeah.
And I've been in situations where people say, well, what do you feel?
Yeah.
Or I say, I feel this. They say, no, you think that. And I'm saying, like, I don't know the difference. I don't know the difference, because if I think something, I say I feel it.
Yeah.
I have a lot of trouble in my life unraveling feelings and thoughts, which is which.
Yeah, Michael, it's this bumper sticker on my street on a car. It says, "Don't believe everything you think."
Yeah.
And there's a thing that goes like this. We invented the word thinking and feeling, but we can't really separate them, but we think we can because we invented the words.
Well, I think there's some areas where they're really, really clearly different.
Okay.
If you're thinking of a mathematical formula or you're feeling hunger, those are pretty clear. But when it comes to the states that we're in and the way we're processing our lives and our realities, I have trouble separating them. I don't even try.
Fill in the blank. I don't know what I think until I
don't know.
That's a beautiful thing, because I want you to feel you can say, I don't know, pass, all those things. I'm after your hunch, your guess, but
I don't know what I think till I articulate it. And
Articulate it. That's good.
and I often have no idea how I feel about something, and I'm
Yeah.
through a few sentences about it. I go, okay, that's how I feel.
Yeah.
I'm
This is
decide in the process of articulating.
articulate is a clean and concise word. I love that word, in fact. But McLuhan says, I don't know what I think until I say it. Joan Didion said, I don't,
Same thing.
yeah. Joan Didion says, I don't know what I think until I write it.
Yeah.
So it's interesting, how now Chomsky says that a language is not just words. It's a culture, a tradition, a unification of community, a whole history that creates what a community is. What do you do when language doesn't work? When language breaks down, what do you do?
I don't know if language breaks down, or if understanding breaks down, or if listening breaks down, or if hearing breaks down, or if people's connotations of different words breaks down.
Yeah.
I don't know how language ever breaks down.
Yeah. Interesting, because like say you're at a store and you're talking to the clerk and there's a miscommunication. What do you do?
I mean, miscommunications happen all the time, but that's not language breaking down. That's
Yeah.
language users not being on the same wavelength. But communication is not the kind of direct transfer of information from one head to another head. Communication is several things. One, is always ambiguous. Secondly, communication itself is the process by which social reality is constructed.
Yeah.
Communication creates the reality that we live in, that we think is real. But it doesn't. This communication breakdown is a really superficial term. There's understanding breakdowns.
That's great. Yeah.
Where people misunderstand each other, or mishear each other, or don't understand what the other is saying. That's just an understanding thing. That's just trying to make sure your codes are aligned.
Codes.
And sometimes codes are misaligned. And sometimes it takes us a long time to realize that you and I are talking about two different things. We've been having this conversation for 10 minutes, and I'm talking about one thing, and you think I'm talking about something else. That's the codes are misaligned. And sometimes we straighten it out and we get back in a similar track or not. But I don't know if language itself ever breaks down. But I'm not a linguist, so I'm not sure.
But it helped me a lot because it's like, remind me, I use this example, talking to someone about Jesus, and I go, do you mean the God or the TV series? And then you're talking about brandy, and you go, you mean the alcoholic drink or the pop star?
Right. Yeah, well, that's the thing about words, the homophones. They're homophones where the same word means different things, or the same word can refer to incredibly different things. Sometimes complete opposite meanings, like sanguine, for example, means the opposite of itself.
Does it really? Sanguine.
Yeah. It can mean very confident about something, or to be very wary of something.
Oh my God. I'm gonna do etymology on that one. That's a good one.
Everything is context.
It's all context, yeah. You already answered this, but I got Kev. Are your observations of humans in general, are we more feeling beings or more thinking beings?
Oh, I think we're bundles of emotions.
Yeah.
I think we think about stuff.
Yeah.
But I think we're always having an emotional response to something. I think we try to make rational sense out of our emotional states sometimes, or sometimes the emotional state will completely destroy any semblance of rationality. People lose it. But I think we're just walking bundles of emotions that think a lot.
That's so funny you use that word bundle, because I liked Deepak Chopra when he first came out, and then, he got so big, but he did a Playboy interview a couple years ago, and he says one thing, and I'm curious because he uses that word bundle. I'm just curious your reaction to it. A person's identity is a socially induced hallucination. There's no such thing as a person. There's only a bundle of consciousness that's constantly in flux.
Yeah, I generally agree with that. This is when people talk about their true self. I go like, what the hell is that? That doesn't mean your true self. You're one thing with your mother. You're one thing with a student. You're another thing in a grocery store.
Yeah.
Another thing when a policeman pulls you over,
Yeah.
you're all those selves.
Yeah.
We
Okay.
are
Well,
all those selves.
let's stay on that for a second. Then this is good. Um, yeah. Alan Watts says everybody's trying to find out who they are. If you figure out who you are, you're in trouble.
Yeah, I don't even try to figure out who I am.
Yeah.
People tell me who I am, and people give me very different types of feedback on myself. I say, okay, that's what I am to that person. That's what I am to that person. I must be all those things, but I don't think of any of those as who I am, as if that's a definitive, unambiguous, clear-cut, permanent entity.
Wow.
That is somehow individualized and singular and removed from all social contexts.
No. I really appreciate this, Michael. I'm learning a lot, like I did when I spent those days with you.
Fun.
Amazing.
We had fun yakking, and when you left, I was exhausted.
Yeah. Yak City. So both
it's not, you're also, your questions are so stimulating and your responses are so stimulating. So it's not just me.
Thank you.
I love that bumper sticker about if everything you think, whatever. It's like the name of this blog. I'm probably wrong about everything. That's too. I feel very similar. Like, que se yo, Spanish. What do I know? Que se yo.
Yeah. Well, both Krishnamurti and McLuhan said violence is the human search for identity. What's your take on that one?
I don't have an immediate response. I'd have to ponder it. I tend to be wary of this is the that types of statements.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that may be times when it is. I don't know if every act of violence is a search for identity.
Yeah.
And I don't know if violence is the only way to achieve identity.
Yeah.
So it could be that violence explains a lot of search. Violence may often be explained as or by a search for identity, but I don't know if I would define it that way.
Yeah, I think both of them were not defining it. They were saying that when there is violence, it could be a search for human identity.
That seems much more plausible. That seems reasonable.
Yeah. These are two questions from Alan Turing, 1950s. Is thinking a function of the soul?
Well, to answer that, you have to know what a soul is.
Yeah.
And I've never understood what a soul is.
Yeah.
I've never understood. I know there's religious concepts of soul and this concept of soul, but I've never really intellectually understood what a soul is or spiritually understood what a soul is. So I can't really answer that. The question is meaningless in that form. If you know what a soul is, you can't answer the whole thing.
Yeah. The second Turing question is, can machines think?
No, but they can learn.
Yeah.
They can learn and they can observe. They don't think in the same way we use the word thinking, but they can certainly emulate it and give us the impression that they're learning, that they're thinking. But I don't know enough about AI to really definitively answer that. There might be people that are working with it say absolutely machines can think. Yeah. I know they are very, very good at synthesizing.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's thinking. We use the term thinking often to describe, like we say, oh, this computer thinks that, or it thinks you mean that. But I don't know if it's thinking in the same way we mean it. Maybe it is. I just don't know enough about the cognitive processes of AI. I don't really know enough about. I don't think I want to. I don't think I want to either.
Yeah. Half of our life is like watching that little thing spin around, and it's like, oh, my computer's thinking. I always go, no, the gerbil's spinning around inside.
Just buffer.
Buffer. Yeah, the buffer. That's what it's called. Now, you touched on this, Michael. You have BSP. Do you more pursue happiness or more pursue meaning?
I mean, my first reaction is when I understand what things mean, I'm happy. So it comes together. I think happiness more, but that doesn't preclude searching for meaning. But to me, meaning is usually pretty self-evident. I don't struggle to find meaning. I think there's a lot of meaninglessness out there. And I'm not driven by a search for meaning. That sounds shallow. But I find what I do is meaningful for me. And so I don't particularly worry about that part of it.
That's interesting because, see, it's me and you versus the wording on the question. So I'm always like, people sometimes go into that when I say, you more pursue happiness or meaning, they go, well, let's talk about that word pursue. I don't pursue anything, but I got it from Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning. He says happiness tends to not last as long as meaning. Meaning tends to last.
Yeah, that's absolutely. Happiness is fleeting. Happiness
Yeah.
is the emotional fix you need right at that minute. If you think of happiness as, oh, this tastes really good, or I really like this movie, or this shirt looks really good on me, that's just immediate. Happiness to me is more like just being content in my life.
Yeah.
And not feeling I'm suffering and miserable and I don't have what I need. So for me, that's being happy is just being content. Doesn't mean I'm happy in this minute. I can be pissed off about something. I can be angry about something. I can be annoyed about something, but I can still have a general contentment in my life.
Yeah.
But, I search for meaning. When I find my brain working right now, what I'm thinking is, okay, you have 300 something of these videos. I would love to go through and code them. How do people respond to this question? So 25% say, I search for happiness. 64% say, I search for meaning. Now, what's the difference? Oh, males say this and females say that. And people on the East Coast say this, and people on this is where my brain works in terms of classifying statistical information. I love doing data analysis. And that sounds weird. I
do it all the time. I say, well, 80% people say this on this question, but I don't break it down by the other topics that you decide. I just say, I'll give you the example. Your observations of humans, are we more feeling or thinking? 80 to 90% say feeling. Maybe even 98% say feeling.
Right.
And they say it like this: I think we're more feeling. And my one friend teases me. He goes, I feel we're more thinking.
I love it. I love that. I love that. The patterns is what I love to find.
Yeah.
And even though I understand that we actually create the patterns more than observe them a lot of the time.
Yeah.
I do understand that. But I spend most of my time doing statistical data analysis of large data sets.
Wow.
And I heard a wow in there.
Yeah, Susie's wow.
And that's my brain is, whether I trained it to work that way or it works that way naturally, I don't know. But it's the fact that I'm sitting here saying, okay, so once I find out what percent of people say meaning and what say happiness, I want to know what predicts that. Do they wear glasses? Are they left-handed? Is it male, female? Yeah. And is it an age thing? Is it how many books you can see in the background? Like, who says what? And then I want to look at the factors together, because these variables don't operate in isolation. So, for example, the gender is going to intersect with what coast someone is on and what ethnicity they are. So all those multiple, intricate, intersecting layers of not causality, but syndromes.
Syndrome, not causality. That's good.
Of reciprocating dynamic patterns.
Yeah.
That's what I find so interesting, both to uncover statistically and to think about. And every time you see one, you go, well, what about if you bring in this variable, or if you bring in that?
Yeah. Really good. In fact, the pinnacle question that I've asked the longest in 40 years, we'll get to. And when I asked these two 8 and 10-year-old kids once, they were both boys, brothers. They go, is it this? Is it more this or more that? They go, those words are too big for us. Which was really funny, because I don't think they were, but that's how they reacted. So they
about structural determinism versus something else.
Yeah. Oh, does the brain more detect consciousness or create it? Like, is consciousness there bubbling away and we're more so detecting it or more so creating it?
I don't have the slightest idea, but I would think that in a lot of ways, consciousness has more to do with the mind than the brain.
Yeah.
by
That's
which I mean the social, the brain is not what's in the individual head, but it's in the social interaction, how the mind is constructed by society and by social interaction.
Yeah, Michael, this is really important because that's when I've actually reconsidered. Does the human more create consciousness? Does the human mind, body, and spirit more? But I've left it brain because I got it from some magazine. So what's the difference between the brain and the mind in your opinion?
Brain is a biological organism in your head.
Yeah.
That does all these functions. It is constantly, it's processing what my eyes see, what my ears hear, it's doing all these things. But the mind is a product of social interaction.
Right. Product of social interaction. That's amazing.
A human being left alone in the woods from birth who's never had interaction with other humans would not have a mind. They'd have a brain, they would do things, but they wouldn't have what we call a mind.
I was just gonna, you anticipate that. I was just gonna ask you that if you don't have interaction, because they're it's Wild Child, or the kid, it happened a few years ago. A kid was raised in a basement, and then they finally showed him Star Wars, and it was like, what, whoa.
But, I didn't come up with this. This is all kinds of people over many long periods of time. And Bateson's Steps to an Ecology of Mind, and all the mind is
Bateson's Ecology of Mind. That's good. Yeah.
Ecology of mind. Brains are really interesting for people that study brains, and we can do all kinds of things with brains that we couldn't do before. People can observe different parts of your brain lighting up when exposed to different stimuli, and what connects to what. And that's the kind of neurobiological stuff is interesting if you're into that. And it's pretty remarkable what we can do. But I find minds more interesting because they're more of a black box. They're more variable in a lot of ways, and they have more consequences that are more unpredictable.
Yep. What's faster, speed of light or speed of thought?
Depends on the person. Some people are like, well, there goes the light, goes fast. Other people can't keep up with it. So, I mean, what's like 344,000 miles a second, something like that. That's probably pretty fast. Yeah. I don't know how fast thought is. Thought can be really slow or it can be quick. So thought has various modes. It has different gears it's in, depending on what's going on.
Yeah. Audre Lorde, the poet, said, "You can't dismantle the master's house using the master's tools." Yvonne Rainer responded and said, "You can if you expose the tools. What new tool do you suggest?"
Well, first of all, mastering the master's tools is a very good thing to be able to do.
Yeah.
Because that gives you an equalization of power that you didn't have before. This is one of the critiques often of empirical quantitative methods. And the fact that often it is authoritarian regimes that use them means that if you know how to use them too, then you can resist that power. So, and I'm coming to this whole Lord thing because I don't know the context of it, and I don't really know what is being referred to here. So I would say the master's tools is a good first step to have. And knowing them can give you insights or keys or hints or clues to how to develop new tools to overcome those. But I don't know what the new tool is that I need. I don't know what that would be.
What new toy do you suggest?
For me or for other people?
You put it in the context you want.
I don't know. I keep thinking about, I can't think of any new toys I need right now. I keep thinking, gee, should I get one of these? No, I don't need that. Should I get one of those? I don't really need that. This is one I'd have to think about. And in 20 minutes, I might come up with, remember we talked about the new toy? I know what I want. So, but right now I don't have a particular answer, not an answer I walk around with in my head. But don't be surprised if in 20 minutes I go, I know what toy I want.
Good. I love it.
Right now, I don't know what it is.
What do you worry about?
Toys I need.
Yeah. Well, What do you worry?
You know what I'd like for a toy?
What?
I would like to be able to transport myself to different places.
Yeah, that's a good
That
toy.
would be a fun toy because
Yeah.
my kids live very far away.
Yeah.
One's in 12 hours to the east, and the other is 9 hours to the west if you're flying. They're 12
Yeah.
time zones apart. And I love being in other places, but traveling itself is not fun anymore.
Oh no.
Traveling itself has become really awful. We've
Yeah.
done quite a bit, Australia, Argentina, many places, but I want to keep going places and being places, but getting there is like, ugh. So if I could just transport myself, beam me up, Scotty. I'd love to just have a quick transport and go see one kid and go see the other kid. That's the toy. Can I get that toy, please?
Yes, that is a cool toy. It's an amazing toy, and it's beautiful. You said it. Okay, what do you worry about when you go to bed at night?
I don't worry about anything.
Mars.
No, I worry about the world. I think the world
Yeah.
is in a really horrible place right now.
Yeah.
And I know it's been in a horrible place many other times through history.
Yeah.
But some are not quite as horrible. And this one seems really horrible in a lot of ways right now. And there are a lot of very foreboding potential perils in the very near future. And so I worry about those things happening. I worry about what's happening now and about pretty horrible things happening in the near future that are not far-fetched. So they're not personal things I worry about. Although I worry, is it going to rain tomorrow and I can't play golf or something?
Yeah.
We're going to get too much snow and I won't be able to go to this thing I want to do. So little things that one worries about, but not deep worries for myself. But right now the world is quite grim. Grim.
McLuhan learned from Pound, the poet, that artists are the antenna of the race. They're broadcasting and detecting the hidden psychic effects of our inventions, so we might be able to learn to cope with what we don't like about our inventions. So, Michael, I asked you the question Marshall probed his whole career. Why do we ignore the hidden psychic effects of our inventions, even though the artists are broadcasting them to us?
I don't know if the artists are always successfully doing that or in ways that we have our codes aligned for. That's my new phrase. I just made that up today. Have our codes aligned. I think it's hard to see what our new inventions do to us, and we need time. I don't know if artists are always the ones to do that. In ways that the rest of us can comprehend. I mean, artists may do it occasionally, but certainly a great deal of art has nothing to do with that. So again, it strikes me as one of those too absolute sounding statements. I mean, art can tell us about what our inventions are doing, but so can sustained analysis.
No, that is an art form. That's what I think. It's not. It's a deceiving word usage, because I sometimes say, well, we're all broadcasting the hidden psychic effects, and I think it's hard to see as part of the thing that people can't always see through the weeds to get
I'm thinking of something Gerbner wrote when he was very early in his career. George Gerbner, back in the 50s, I think he was mid 50s. He was doing a general model of communication. And part of that, he was talking about the functions of science and art, which is what really we're talking about here, what science does and what art does. And if I can get the wording right, I may have to look it up. But he says the function of science is to make beliefs truer. And the function of art is to make the truth more believable.
Make the what more believable?
Truth more believable.
Make the truth more believable.
So the function of science is to make beliefs truer, to make what we believe more true, or to find out what is true so we can believe in it. And the function of art is to make the truth more believable. So they're completely intertwined. I love that, and I'm pleased I could retrieve it quasi accurately. because it's a little
Well,
complicated.
there's a lot there because I've just started asking this question: what's the difference between science and art? And that led to your use of George's use of the word true and believe, because believe is a great word because it has the word lie in the middle of it.
Right. But I've often argued that this distinction between science and art that we use in everyday language is really misleading, because there is, at least in terms of social science, which was what I do. I don't know about quote science with men in white coats and all that in labs.
Yeah.
But for me, social science, there's a huge amount of art involved in it. It's construction. It's not just simply observing reality, uncovering it. There's a creation of reality there too.
Yeah.
And of course there has to be, because everything we do is fundamentally subjective. Even when we think we're being completely detached and scientific, there's still subjectivity to it.
Yeah.
So I remember when I was very young and in grad school and learning statistical analysis for the first time. And I felt, gee, this is the same feeling I get when I'm composing music on the piano. That same sense of like what you have in front of you is an array of tones or numbers or concepts. You have 88 keys on a piano, and they can be arranged in infinite ways. Those, and not even using all 88, just a few bunches of them. You can arrange them any number of ways that are all very beautiful and reasonable and different and true. And I have all these ways to talk about these statistical patterns and these statistical techniques and measures and ways of putting them together. And they can be assembled in a very large number of different ways, and they're all true. Neither one is more true than the other. So I felt a very similar process in myself when I was learning to do this sort of data analysis to what I felt when I was composing music. I said, oh, that's interesting. That's weird.
Yeah, that is beautiful. I want to go into truth in a second, but just to follow up, because of that word artist, or the antenna of the race, this is the follow-up question. Do artists have moral obligation?
Probably. It's the same as anybody else does.
Yeah.
If anybody does, an artist does. I don't know if they have something special. And then it gets very. I'm spinning that question in my head because it quickly devolves into, well, what's a moral obligation? What's moral? Who decides what's moral?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I can sit here sanctimoniously saying, oh, yes, we all have moral obligations, so we have to do this and that, the other thing. And I'm thinking, okay, if an artist comes up with something that is really very hurtful to people and damaging to people, and they believe in it very strongly, and they believe it makes an important statement, but do they have a moral imperative to not disseminate it if it's going to do pain to people? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that.
It's really good, Michael. You really got the question, because it is. Most people do say everybody has a moral obligation, but that's funny because the futurists said burn and destroy the libraries and museum. I love that. I don't want people to do it, but I love that they came up with that. Like, don't save this crap. It's just move on. But
so
whatever.
It's easy to yes, we all have moral obligations, blah, blah, blah. But what does that mean? What does that mean? So,
and then here's two more on art before we go into truth. This is Mike Kelly. Art is making your problems other people's problems.
Art is making
your problems other people's problems.
Oh, that's spiffy.
I knew he would love that adjective, dude. That's a spiffy.
I don't know if it's true, but it's it's spiffy.
Well, also because we're going through every Woody Allen film, it sounds like Woody. He just makes his neurosis into your neurosis. It's like, wow, but he's a good writer and a good filmmaker, so it works pretty good.
I mean, I just keep thinking there can be, really abstract art.
Yeah.
that is just shapes, visual art that is just shapes, and it's nothing to do with my problems or your problems
Yeah.
or anything else. I mean, so it's coming up with these blanket applications of these
Yeah.
spiffy little statements that
Swiffy is a great.
make me hesitate.
Yeah.
And you know, some of these things are just really clever. Even if they don't work, they sound great.
Yeah. It's clever is good too. You know, Mike was a very important artist, and I was lucky to go to school with him and interview him with all these stupid questions twice. But he also just loved the fact that James Brown had a TV show called Future Shock TV, which, talk about words. You know, James Brown sings Soul Train, and he goes, "I'm going to start a TV show, Future Shock TV."
I love it.
Okay, here's one more on art. Fanny Howe, a poet. The point of art is to show people that life is worth living by showing that it isn't.
Sounds like an Ibsen play.
Yeah, oh my God, she would love that. That's Joyce's main guy, Ibsen play. Because I can't figure out what she's saying, but I love I love when people react to it.
Yeah. Well, that's the best thing about these questions of yours is watching people react. It's not their answers.
It's not
their face goes like, what? Oh my God, he's asking me something. I have to say something smart. You're like,
yeah. Well, that's funny. Rebecca Solnit just nailed it. I've been trying to interview her for years, but I haven't done it yet. She said once,
or else
just because you ask a question doesn't mean I have to answer it.
Right. Right.
And that's really beautiful. And I don't encourage people to say pass, but once in a while they do it. But saying I don't know, or another one I love is I can't answer that. That's a funny answer, but it's really being true. I can't answer that. So there's a lot I can read into that.
And what's great about these questions is they're not asking for things we walk around with in our head.
Yeah.
You know, we don't have our ready-made answers. Oh, that's in this pocket. That's in this pocket, you know. And so there are things we haven't thought about. And so the responses can be kind of meaningless babble as we're searching for an answer, or they can really make us think and sometimes come up with an interesting, intriguing response. That's why I'd love to do a content analysis of all your interviews.
Oh, I'd love it. I mean, I have really done it in a sense, but people have said, you know, I found an interview book once where they took one question and then had 20 answers on that page. Yeah. Another question, 20 answers. Yeah. And so this is in regards to truth. The one I always start with is Louis Buñuel says, "I'm for anyone who seeks the truth, but I part ways when they claim they found it."
Yes. I like that. I didn't know that quote, but I really like that.
Yeah.
Because just in terms of scientific, medical, biological knowledge, what's true today might be proven untrue in 3 weeks or something. You know, we always think X. Now we don't. What was I reading today? Something in the New Yorker, I think. How now we think of schizophrenia now as some specific chemical imbalance, as opposed to your mother was a certain way to you. You know, like R.D. Laing, we always thought it was your mother gave you mixed messages. We always thought schizophrenia was the double bind. That was the R.D. Laing thing. That schizophrenia was caused by mothers being lousy mothers. But now we think it's a simple little chemical imbalance that can be corrected with some certain drugs. In 3 weeks, you might find it comes from eating French fries. Who knows?
Yeah.
No, the point is that any knowledge is always transitory and it's always tentative, and that's fine. But it's the searching for it that's the fun part. And okay, we get an answer, but it's still tentative, it's still transitory, and it's still impermanent because new data, new understandings, new misunderstandings can come along. We think something else. We don't use leeches too much anymore.
Yeah.
So, but I love that quote because I feel like anybody who thinks they know the truth is just fooling themselves.
Yeah.
You know, but it's just that search of trying to find it out, whether it's it's your own truth or whether it's something medical or physics or something. That's the good part. That's what keeps things interesting, so they don't just stay the same.
Yeah, that's Krasner asked a guru, why is there evil? And in the guru said, to thicken the plot.
Yeah. And you know, it would be fun now, I'm thinking, this is total non sequitur.
Yeah.
But to feed these questions into ChatGPT.
Oh, I ever said the day ChatGPT, I says, I got to do this. And I'm too busy doing them. And I really want to, in a real precise way, with someone who can hit all the buttons so it's all recorded.
All you have to do is type these same questions into like Google Bard. Google Bard is interesting because it'll give you
BAIRD?
BARD.
Google Bard?
Yeah. It's another one. There's a bunch of them. But Google Bard is interesting because it gives you 3 responses.
Oh, great to know that.
And you can ask it, say, you know, what's the best about what does a human most need, whatever it is, what's the best about human?
Yeah.
Best thing for a human. And you'll get, I'm going to do that as soon as we finish here. I'm going to type it into Google Bard.
Yeah.
I can send you the answers, but it'll give you 3 responses and you can see which one you like the best.
No, I can send you all 150 questions. That's but here's the follow-up, because you did so well on the Buñuel sussing it out, big picture.
I passed. I did good.
Well, it's when you suss it out, you get it. I like, Pascal, the mathematician philosopher, says in order to understand anything, you have to know this end of the spectrum and that, and everything in between. And we tend to lean towards a certain bias and go, I think it's this. That's why these questions are like, here's the funny thing I do, Michael. Oh, what's faster, speed of light or speed of thought? When people go speed of thought, I go, there's no right or wrong answers, but that one you got right. I literally say that to sort of mock this thing of, so you suss out a bigger picture because pattern recognition leads to comprehensive awareness, which is the big picture. You're trying to suss out this big picture, understanding or misunderstanding. So when I said the Buñuel quote, 99% of people go, oh, that's great, I love it. One guy finally said, that's bullshit, because if I'm going to seek something, it's because I want to find it. So then I morphed it into this question. The cliche goes, and it turned into an archetype, the journey is more important than the destination. Why do we have to seek or name a destination if the journey is more important?
Because if you're journeying without a destination, where are you going? You can't have a journey without a destination. Well, I guess you could. That sounds silly too. I mean, every one of these statements can sound silly if you think about it a little bit.
Well, that's funny because that's the flaneurs, the people in Paris in the 20s, psychogeography, they just wandered aimlessly, like Joyce saying, epiphanies in everydayness, and drank coffee and I just hung out and did nothing, and they changed the world forever. Hemingway, Picasso, Joy, all these people, Gertrude Stein, they were just like doing nothing.
But I'm interested in the person who disagreed about said the Buñuel quote.
Yeah.
Because what I disagree is because, say you think you found the truth.
Yeah.
If you don't think you found it with a certain amount of humbleness.
Yeah.
If you don't realize it's conditional. I mean, the way research, science, I use research and science interchangeably, or art as well, whatever.
Yeah.
The way that process works is that all knowledge is conditional.
Yeah.
So that's how it looks now. But there's always this opening that new data, new evidence, new information can change that.
Yeah.
And if you think that something is immutable and never going to change, well, you'd be disappointed because everything changes. Another professor I had once said, nothing never changes.
Nothing ever changes.
Nothing never changes.
Nothing never changes.
Nothing never changes.
Right. There's no such thing as the absence of change.
Yeah. Do you remember who said that?
Ray Birdwhistle.
So this is good because I think, and I again say thank you for being a listener. I think when the person said, I'm for anyone who seeks the truth, but I part ways when they claim they found it, they were just saying the first part, and accentuating the first part, because it is often it's this or that, and then there's words they accentuate, and they're like, well, what about the verb, and what about the beginning? So here's the next one. Shall be foot. A fact is not a truth until you love it.
The way I interpret that,
Yeah,
it may not be what shall be foot net.
yeah,
Is that you could find a fact that you're uncomfortable with, that's not what you were hoping to find, and you don't love it, and so therefore it's not going to become a truth, even though
yeah,
it's quote a fact. I find something in my research that, oh, I didn't want to find that goes against that goes against my hypotheses. That's not what I expected. That goes against my values. But I mean, so it can't be a fact. It can't be true. It's still going to be a mistake. It's got to be a mistake. When in grad school, I would run data analyses and bring George Gerbner the results. And he'd go, oh, there must be some mistake. Go run it again. As if running the same numbers through the computer was going to give you a different response. Go run it again. It's like this Hungarian accent. No, it comes. Guess what? It's exactly the same.
That is good. Well, here's Eartha Kitt. Truth is a theory that is constantly being disproved.
Yeah.
Only lies, it seems, go on forever.
Yeah. No, I agree with that.
Yeah.
I think just all you have to do is look at Donald Trump.
Yeah.
George Santos. I mean, that's same thing as Buñuel. It's absolutely true.
Yeah. But
that's absolutely true.
That's absolutely. Yeah. This is Proust. On what occasion do you lie?
I think we lie. I feel. I don't know. I've never thought about it, but I think we lie all the time in little ways.
Yeah.
I think we lie to ourselves. I think we lie to other people constantly, but I think it's just most of it's really meaningless. Actually, there have been people looking at lying. I'm trying to remember the research. The amount of the frequency with which we lie is remarkably high, but most of them are really meaningless, inconsequential little lies. Big lies are different. And they're more consequential. But in so many little ways, about whether people did something or want to do something or have done something, it's just lies all the time, little lies.
This is,
I think.
Yeah, this is Tom Waits. On what occasion do you lie? He says, I didn't know I needed an occasion.
Yeah. On Groundhog Day, Christmas.
Right. Well, here's Don Marquis, because you brought up that. If you make people think they're thinking, they'll love you. If you really make them think, they'll hate you.
It's a spiffy one. No, I like that one. I like that one because if the point is that if they really heard, if they could really think, then they would be quite disheartened and they would be what's the word I'm looking for? Losing a word. Realize what they think is wrong, and they don't want to realize what they think is wrong.
Yeah,
there's a word I'm looking for that's escaping my little brain right now. But
Michael,
disabused. They'd be
disabused.
That's the word. They'd be disabused of their assumptions.
Yeah.
But if you make them think, oh yes, I'm coming up with all these great ideas. But if you, the implication of the sentence is that if you really made them think, they would be disabused of their comfortable little assumptions.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it's true, but it's spiffy.
Yeah. And then this is McLuhan. Everybody experiences far more than they understand. Yet it is experience rather than understanding that influences behavior. Now, I'm going to tell you what I think kind of it means, and I would love you to suss it out because I could get it wrong. If the kid comes in from the cold and the parent goes, don't touch the stove, it'll burn your hands. That's experience. If the parent goes, I want to teach you the dynamics of heat, get really close to the stove, rub your hands together, and you'll warm your hands up. So I think Marshall's sort of saying experience shapes our behavior, but more so, understanding should shape our behavior. But I don't know. I could read it again if you want.
Yeah, read it again.
Everybody experiences far more than they understand.
Okay, that part, if we hold there and parse it, that part I interpret as saying that the amount of stimuli that we absorb on a daily, constant basis is more than we can process.
That's it.
We can't take in all the sounds, all the smells, all the sights, all the commercials, all of the bodies walking around in front of you, all the cars moving, just the constant stimuli that bombard us. Those are things we experience, but we can't process them all. We can't interpret them all. We can't make sense of them all. So that's the first part. We can't understand all the experience stimuli that confront us and bombard us and inundate us on a moment-to-moment basis. But
sensory overload. But Michael, no one breaks this down like this, because I've been trying to suss this out, and I think I might have it wrong. Then he puts the yet it is experience rather than understanding that influences behavior.
Yes, because a lot of it is unconscious. That we take it in even if we don't process it consciously. If we don't make sense of it, interpret it, and bring it to consciousness, it is still affecting our emotional, biological being. So at an unconscious level, it still shapes what we're doing. Constrains and directs in ways we're not aware of. So that's how I interpret it.
But do you think he is promoting and saying, I wish, or I kind of hope that understanding shapes our behavior more than experience?
I don't know. I think I don't know if there's a value judgment in it or not.
Yeah.
I think he's just kind of pointing out that we don't necessarily recognize all of the things that go into us on a moment-to-moment basis, on a daily basis. But that doesn't mean it's not affecting us in some ways, we're not conscious of, that we're not necessarily aware of, and we're not thinking about it. We're not keyed into because the amount of information is too vast.
Yeah.
So that's how I interpret it. So I didn't hear a judgment of what's better or what's worse, but I saw it as an observation as the way humans navigate the world.
Well, it is. He did promote suspended judgment. Understanding is not having a point of view. So anybody who has I think you had like 5 to 8 McLuhan books on your shelf, and you had whittled down a lot of books. I was really impressed at which ones you kept. And then, although, George's whole relationship with Marshall was very interesting too. We can go into that sometime. But here's Alan Turing on that word experience. What we want is a machine that can learn from experience. Now that's again what we want. He's telling us what we want, but what's your take on that? What we want is a machine that can learn from experience.
I don't know who he means by we. He may mean society as a whole. He may mean the community of scholars, researchers, scientists he was working with. It takes on different meanings. If he talks about my research team and I, what we want is this. We're saying humans, the human race wants this, and I don't know which he meant. And I was wondering if people that work with AI would say we have it now. Yeah. I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah.
So I don't know who we are in that statement. So it's hard to say exactly what he means.
Are you more afraid of new ideas or more afraid of old ideas?
I'm afraid of ideas. No.
Dude, you know what 80% of people say? They go, I'm not afraid of any ideas. They love to say that, but a lot of
I'm saying that while I'm thinking about how to answer the question, because that's an easy thing to say. So the process is say something like that sounds funny, so now I can decide what I'm afraid of.
Right. Sorry.
Well, there's some good ideas that are old and some bad ideas that are old.
Yeah.
There's some good ideas that are new and
Yeah.
some bad ideas that are new. But
Yeah.
this is a really interesting thing to think about. You know, this gives me, I don't have the slightest idea which one I'm more afraid of, but it's like, oh, that's interesting. I'm going to ponder that for a while, stick it away. And that's another thing I'm going to that's what's fun about these questions. Cause like, okay, I may not give a very coherent answer right now, but I'm going to think about that. It's interesting.
Yeah. Can you conjure up your earliest memory ever or one of them?
I have a memory of the memory of the memory. And I don't know if it's really a thing, but I just remember sitting on the wall in front of my house at the end of the summer. We would spend the summer down along the beach in Rhode Island, and then come back in the fall. And I remember sitting there watching a movie truck. I must have been 3 years old, whatever. And I have that memory, but I don't know if it's a real memory or a memory of a memory. This is very different things. And I have memories of when I was around 2 before we moved, but I think those are probably constructed memories.
Yeah.
Now my daughter says she remembers being born, but so, you know.
I got that the other day. I was like, wow. Captain Beefheart said he came out of the womb. He says, I'm going back in. Womb service.
So I tend to be a little bit skeptical that she remembers being born, but
yeah. Is memory more a curse or more a blessing?
Oh, I would say a blessing.
Yeah.
Especially if you lose it.
Yeah.
And there may be memories that people have that are curses to them that haunt them. Probably everybody has some of those.
Yeah.
But overall, being to remember is a nifty thing.
Yeah.
Better than the alternative.
Yes. Tell me someone within your immediate family, then outside your immediate family, just briefly, who had an impact on you, kind of like a role model, and what specifically was that impact?
Well, the first thing, my knee-jerk response is my sister is 6.5 years older than I am. And she played the piano, so I wanted to play the piano.
Yeah.
She did X, I wanted to do X.
Yeah.
I know there are often siblings that are the opposite, that, you know, whatever one wants to do, the other won't do that. But for whatever reason, the way I was wired, she played the piano. Okay, I want to do that. Move over. She played the guitar. Okay, I want to play the guitar. She got married. I said, okay, I want to get married. You know, so like everything she did, I wanted to emulate, for whatever reason, whether she was the big sister or she was the only person around. So I imitated whatever I saw. I mean, we're very different people. We're very close, but we have all things in common, but we're very different people in our lives and all that. So it's not like I've continued to emulate her forever and ever. But we both have an older child that's a girl and a younger that's a boy, so that we have that in common. But I just remember being very young, and whatever she did, I wanted to do that too.
Wow.
Whether that was her or me or what, I don't know. But I know it just, and what would predict whether that would happen or whether it be the complete opposite, which often happens too, where one sibling does one thing, the other one reacts to it, against it. So I have no idea what would predict one or the other, but I know both happen.
Yeah.
Outside, many. It's hard to choose one. I was very influenced by my high school Latin teacher, who actually had gone to high school with my mother. He was quite a character, but as a model of a scholar who basically was involved in the most arcane scholarly pursuits, but having an immense store of knowledge that he could talk about and experiences and stories that he could tell. That I didn't know if half of them were true, but they were wonderfully entertaining stories. And he played a big role in my life, quite a bit.
Really good, Michael. And because you have a moment here, you could What did you mainly get from George? Because how many years did you spend with George?
God, I started working. Well, I started grad school in '75, and I gravitated instantly to his way of looking at things because we're talking about George Gerbner for those who are just
Yeah.
don't know George's. He was a media scholar who was for a quarter of a century dean of the Annenberg School of Communications at University of Pennsylvania. And I had this vague, unarticulated, incoherent sense of how media worked, but I didn't have the intellectual, theoretical, conceptual frameworks for how to describe it. And it was very vague and dissociated, but it was lined up in similar ways to what he was doing. And when I found his methodology and his theoretical framework, he said, I get it. That makes sense to me. And I gravitated toward working in that area very early on, and started working on his project called the Cultural Indicators Project, which numerous grad students were working on. I started working on that within a couple of years, and by like 78, 79, I was already co-authoring, one of numerous co-authors. And then starting around 1980, a gang of four, we called ourselves, Gerbner, Gross, Morgan, and Signorelli. We started a 5-6 year period of unbelievable productivity. When I look back now and see all the research we published in those days, all the reports, is an astonishing level of productivity in those 5 or 6 years. Absolutely amazing. And I continued to work with him very closely until the mid-90s, and then sporadically after that. He then became involved in more activism projects, less research per se, something called the Cultural Environment Movement, where he was trying to bring together a coalition of hundreds of media reform organizations to form a very large umbrella organization that would lobby for policy changes and media education and everything like that. And as he became more involved in activism, I was on the board of that, I was involved with that, but less involved in the research. But I stayed in touch with him until just a few months before he died in 2005. So we worked together for close to 40 years, 30, 40 years. Especially in that early mid-80 period was most intense, because after that I was up here at University of Massachusetts and he was at Penn. So we did communicate by email, and we did still co-author quite a bit, but not at that same level of incredible productivity in those early years.
Beautiful. What a period. Did your parents raise you a particular religion?
No, we were non-observant Jews. I did my father was not interested at all. My mother was interested mainly for social reasons, because all her friends belonged to the temple. They only went once a year. But of course, they sent us all to Hebrew school. And because I'm enthusiastic about whatever I do, when I was 5, I wanted to be a rabbi.
Wow, that's cool.
But I became disillusioned with the formal structures of religious practice very early in my adolescence. And I don't do any of it now. I mean, I acknowledge the heritage and the history and where they all came from, but the religious aspect of it is not part of my life at all.
Do you pray?
No. My kids were not brought up in any religion at all. Or
If God exists, what would you like God to say to you after you die?
Oh, I thought you say, what would I like to say to God? That's what I was going to say.
Well, you can do either way, but no, I mean, do the first one first.
What do I want God to say to me?
Yeah.
I'd say, hey, okay, you did okay. You did all right.
Yeah.
You weren't perfect. You screwed up a lot of shit, but you did pretty good.
And then what would you want to say to him?
What the hell are you doing? What the hell are you doing, man?
I like that. What the hell are you doing?
I mean, why'd you screw this place up so much? Come on.
Yeah. Do evil, perfect lead in. Do evil people exist?
Yes.
Or does evil use people as a vehicle?
I don't believe in evil as a force.
Yeah.
I don't. I mean, I know a lot of people do. Yes, there's good and evil. It's all about, there's no such thing as evil people.
Yeah.
No, I think there are some evil people.
Yeah.
There are some truly evil people. Whatever you want to say, why they're evil. Oh, they didn't get enough something when they were young. I don't know, but they're still evil.
Yeah.
I don't believe in capital E evil that is out there in the universe battling again. I don't believe. I know a lot of people do, especially the QAnon people. That I don't believe that.
Yeah. Well, the hidden question really is, how do you advise someone to deal with an enemy? And this one I'll set up. Alan Watts says, if you acknowledge your enemy, you empower them. Coppola stole from the mob and the samurai. Keep your friends close and your enemies closer. JFK said, forgive your enemy, but don't forget their name. And Fellini says, I need an enemy. So it's a lot of thoughts. The basic question is, how do you advise someone to deal with an enemy? But first, how would you respond to Alan Watts? If you acknowledge your enemy, you empower them.
I think that can be true. There's a certain amount of truth to that. That if you engage them on their level, then you confirm their role and you give them some power over you.
Yeah.
How do I advise people? I don't advise people. No one's ever asked me about how to deal with an enemy, I don't think.
Yeah.
But my tendency, I don't know if it's advice per se, my tendency is in those cases to try to avoid conflict, to say, I'm not going to win this. It's not going to go anywhere. They basically, nothing will ever make this person happy.
Yeah.
This person just wants to be contrary and to argue and to do things to make things difficult for people. And nothing I can do can change that. So I can either get myself all worked up and all crazy about struggling with this person and never get anywhere, just go in circles and bang my head against the wall. I just try to put it away. I'm not going there. I'm not going to have this conversation.
Yeah.
I'm not going to, it's just not worth it, because you're never going to change the person's mind. You're never going to, quote, win. And you're just going to get yourself aggravated. So it's a cop-out, but I just, for my own mental health and blood pressure, just say, I'm not going there. I'm not going there.
I don't think it's a cop-out, but here's Nassim Taleb's quote: games were created to give non-heroes the illusion of winning. In real life, we don't know who wins or loses, but we can tell who a hero is. Then my friend said, well, villains don't think they are bad. They want control. Heroes want freedom. And then now to Bateson, Gregory Bateson says, if the criminal gets caught, does he go, whoa, my criminal skills weren't up to snuff that day? Or does he go, oh, I did something morally and socially wrong? So it's a lot of prompts. You can go,
or he says, I did nothing wrong. It's a witch hunt.
That's it. Does punishment work?
I don't know. I know that there's this interesting thing called, whenever people talk about punishment, and maybe it works sometimes. And again, what's rehabilitation versus punishment? I don't know. But there's this thing called regression to the mean. This is something I learned about early in grad school from Larry Gross. However you do on a test or a task or something one time, if you did a little better one time, you'll probably do a little worse the next.
Uh-huh.
Or if you do a little worse one time, the next time you'll probably do a little better, just by random fluctuations, because things don't usually come out exactly the same. I give you a test today, I give you a test tomorrow, a test the next day. And it could be all kinds of, it could be an intellectual test, it could be a cognitive test, it could be a physical test, but there's variation. It's not going to come out exactly the same.
Yeah.
So what they discovered early on, they saw a pattern, they thought. If kids did not do well on a test, then they would punish them. And what do you know? They would do better the next time. If kids did really well on a test, and they would reward them, well, what do you know? Next time they didn't do as well.
Oh.
So they found out, the conclusion was that punishment works, reward does not.
Wow. Well, that's interesting, because I say, oh, that was a great answer, or those were really good words. And that's just how my personality is. I'm trying to conjure the person, or I'm trying to lead the person on to feel like they can just say what they really want in these. One guy, he could quit pandering to me. He literally got pissed at me for saying that was good. And I go, okay, I'm sorry. It's a habit I have,
Right.
you know.
Yeah. So the point is, if you have a group of people, group of students that do well on a test and you reward them, next time they don't do as well because of regression. And a group that does badly and you punish them, next time they do better.
No, well, that's it.
They're regressing to the mean.
So this is Larry Grossman. It was progression.
Gross.
Progression to mean.
Regression to the mean.
Regression to the meme. MEME.
MEAN. Yes, it's a standard statistical.
MEAN. Mean. Yeah. Oh, regression to the mean.
Yeah, what it means is that over multiple tests.
Yeah.
The mean, the overall, you'll regress towards your true mean.
Yeah.
If it's a little higher one time, a little lower another time. Over time, you will regress to the mean.
Yeah.
That's what it means. Oops.
So this is James Joyce 100 years ago, being the first projectionist in Dublin, said, this is stupid. Why should I go inside a building and see a movie of a tree when I can go outside and see a real tree? Faulkner says years later, sometimes the best fiction is more true than journalism. Why do we have to recreate things in order to get them? Why do we have to go to a theatrical play of people acting out life? Why don't we just live life?
Well, because the whole way we make sense of things, and have always made sense of things in all cultures, is through stories.
Yeah.
Storytelling, and this is Gerbner. All cultures use stories. By stories, he means music, dance, art, fiction, soap operas, everything. Yeah. Stories is how we understand the world, is how we define the world, how we make sense of the world. And you can make sense of it, but we understand the role of trees in the world when we see stories about them.
Yeah.
What this gets at is the basic humanizing role of culture, and culture is storytelling.
Yeah.
I'm quoting Gerbner and others here, so this is not my insights. But humans in all cultures and all religions always understand the world through the stories they tell. And the stories reflect their values and their ideologies and their priorities, and the stories reproduce them. It's a dynamic process.
Yeah.
And what Gerbner's point was, look what happened to the process of storytelling. It got taken over by giant commercial corporations.
Yeah.
Who are selling something. It's not sitting around a campfire. It's not the priest. It's not the teacher. It is not somebody who's teaching you a story to share for the community. It's somebody who's telling you these mass-produced stories to make money.
Yeah.
And that's what happened to storytelling in contemporary commercial capitalism society.
Yeah. Sharp, good guy. He did this. Well, this is Hollis Frampton, the experimental filmmaker. Narrative is born among the animal necessities of the spirit because we're waiting to die.
I don't know about the last part, about the waiting to die part, but certainly that's where narrative comes from, the need for storytelling.
Yeah.
I don't think we think about the waiting to die part because most of us know we're not going to die.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you. The question is, can you forget to die?
Yeah, we do forget, because when we think about it, we get too upset. There are people that walk around going, oh, I'm going to die from this. I'm going to die from that. The tree's going to fall on me. Oh, I'm going to get this. But most of us, I think, we're aware of what happened to my picture. My image has gone all crazy on my screen. Is it okay on yours?
Yes. Oh, no, it did. The light just freaked out. Wow.
Yeah, I don't know why. I'm going to let me just close and reopen the camera, okay?
Yeah, let's do that. Yeah.
Close.
Oh, that did it.
Okay. I don't know what happened.
Perfect. Wow, that was wild because the light.
That was fun.
Michael, the light was amazing the whole time, because over your books, this ray of light has been coming in the back. But yeah, most of us forget to die. I'll tell you just the history of that question. I just started a couple of years ago, and people freak out. Can you forget to die? They go, what do you mean? I goes, well, take it literally or metaphorically. They don't know which way to take it,
Yeah, and the thing I didn't come up with this, but it's one of my favorite sayings is, nobody gets out of here alive.
Yeah. That is.
And so, it may be tomorrow, it may be 30 years. I don't know. I hope it's 500 years from now, but it is what it is.
Yeah.
Not something you can, unless you want to die, you don't have much control over it.
Yeah. It's Woodwell also said, long live the living.
Like that. I like that.
So walk us through, Michael, your sort of callings in life. What came I imagine you pursuing being a musician, a composer. What was the tipping point? What was the tipping point to become a golfer? And what was the tipping point to becoming an educator?
Okay, those are 3 different tipping points, and I'm tipping all over the place. I always played music. I performed as I was in shows from when I was young. I did a lot of acting in school. I went to drama school also, and I performed as a musician. I don't know, somehow at some point, I don't know if it was somebody, I don't remember anybody convincing me, but somehow I got the idea like living off that is really hard.
Yeah.
And there's a gazillion really, really talented people out there. And so I never really tried to have a career at some points I thought about having a career as an actor.
Really? Yeah.
Other points as a musician, but I never seriously entertained having a career as an actor or a musician.
Yeah.
But I never stopped doing either one. So it was always just something that gave me immense pleasure. It never was a job.
Yeah.
It was just something I always did. It's just who I am. And I also, I was lucky because I found myself very intellectually drawn to media research. And I loved the academic career that I had. And so I didn't feel like I was selling out. I didn't feel like I was doing something that I hated just to eat. And what I really wanted to do was be performing or composing or acting, whatever, because I got to do plenty of that also. So I felt really lucky because the job I did until I graduated, I didn't say I retired, I graduated. The job that I did was one that I really loved doing.
Yeah.
And it didn't preclude me performing in a lot of shows and doing a lot of music also. So it wasn't an incompatible either or thing for me. That was fine. So I don't know what the tipping point was, but I don't think I ever, when I was like 17, 18, 20, I don't think I ever seriously considered a career as a composer or performer, as much as I was reasonably okay at it. Because I was also drawn to maybe just the pragmatics of having a real job and a real academic career. I don't know. The golf was just something I did because my father played golf. So when I was young, I was 7, 8 years old, I started playing. And when I was 16, I stopped because communists don't play golf. But actually, that's not true. I actually have a picture somewhere of Che Guevara and Fidel playing. They love to play golf.
Oh my God, that's good.
I have it like somewhere here. I don't know. There's famous pictures. You can look it up. Just Google Che Fidel golf. They loved to play golf. They loved it. So communists could play golf. And then I started playing again when I was like late 20s, 30. But I only played a couple of times a year with friends. It wasn't a big deal. And then one day, we were having a budget crisis in Massachusetts. This happens all the time. And the governor, horrible, miserable governor, put us all on furloughs. And they said, we have a choice. We could work and not get paid, or we could work and not get paid. I said, what? You have to work and you won't get paid. So that's your choice. You either work and don't get paid, or you work and don't get paid. Say, I'm going to go play golf. And between the frustration and the anger over the whole budget situation, I started playing more and more and more. And as I worked harder and harder as an academic, my summers when I didn't have to teach became more precious. And I just found myself for years, I would get to the golf course at 9 o'clock and stay till 5. 5 o'clock, got to go, putting like a 9 to 5 job at the golf course. I would get there in the morning, play 9 holes, have a little lunch, play 9, play another 9, and I walked either 18 or 27 every single day in the summer.
Yeah.
Because that was how and I'd still work at night and weekends on my research, but that was how I avoided the stress, because I worked so hard as a professor. Because when I do something, it's just the way I am. It's so compulsive. I do it 1,000%.
Yeah.
So in order to remain somewhat sane, I just spent the whole summers playing golf like crazy, as a way to handle the pressure of the teaching.
That's a great balance. But do you call that work ethic?
No, I don't know. I don't feel like if I don't work, I'm a bad person.
Yeah.
I just enjoy the work. I I have trouble doing things in a la way, just kind of nonchalantly guiding through. I know that I had colleagues who just come in and teach and go leave. I would just have to spend hours and hours prepping every single class meeting. And that's where I get to the point. I said, okay, I've done this long enough. Time to quit.
Yeah.
And that's when I graduated.
But that dedication, let's not call it a work ethic, your drive, your compulsion.
Compulsive.
Compulsive. Did you get it more from the way your parents raised you or more on your own?
More, it's me.
Yeah.
It's just me. I don't think they instilled that or trained me to do that. I don't think so. I mean, who knows? But it's certainly just the way I am.
Michael, I wanted to go into music, but we're reaching 90 minutes. I want to go longer now if you can, but if you can't, let me know.
I got a little time.
Okay. But we'll definitely have to do like what Dimitri and many schedule a part 2 somewhere down the line. But here's McLuhan in 57. It's misleading to suppose there's any basic difference between education and entertainment. It's always been true that whatever pleases teaches more effectively. Yeah. So being a teacher, I mean,
he said that in 57.
He said that in 57, and
wow.
I'm just curious your distinction between education and entertainment, and how much did you learn from studying acting how to present material to your students, and how often teachers go, they didn't teach us how to teach. They just said, go teach.
They did just teach. They did just tell us to go teach. But I think being comfortable on a stage and thinking all the time about how can I keep their attention?
Yeah.
How can I keep people listening to me? And, my classes had 300 students in them, so they were performances.
Yeah.
And I treated them as performances. And after each, I was like, oh, that was good. That was good. Yeah. So I don't know. I guess, to me, I've always thought that my stage experience had a lot to do with how I performed as a teacher, because it's a role.
Yeah.
When I'm teaching, I always think, okay, I am playing a role. And I'm thinking about, there's an audience out there that is thinking about 100 other things, that is barely paying attention to anything going on around them in most of their classes. How can I get them to listen?
Yeah.
And through a combination of what I thought was compelling material, but presented in a dramatic, theatrical way, that I tried to be engaging and funny to keep them listening and aware and tuned in. So I would use a lot of strange voices and a lot of movement and tell stories and things like that. But I think that had a lot to do with stage.
What's the function of music?
Deep emotion.
Wow, that's good.
In ways that I can't begin to explain or understand. I just know music has an effect on me that is so physical and so emotional. And there's certain things I can't hear because I just start weeping.
Yeah, same way. Copeland said the 4 elements or ingredients are melody, harmony, rhythm, and tone color. How do you integrate or focus on those 4? Is there an emphasis? Is there a process when you're writing a Michael piece?
Melody,
harmony, rhythm, tone color.
Okay. I focus a lot on rhythm and tone color. not
Yeah.
intentionally. I'm just thinking about my music, my symphonic, quote, orchestral, instrumental music. That's a better word. Instrumental music is about rhythms and tone colors.
Yeah.
Songs are more about melodies and harmonies.
Yeah. Wow.
Songs with lyrics. But the extended piano pieces I've written are rhythm and tone color. Rhythm and tone
Well,
color.
to the normal person, not in academic terms, what is tone color?
How can I find the words? Just the way the depth to it, the way
Yeah.
it will sustain or not sustain, the way it'll meld and blend with other tones. So
Yeah.
two that are next to each other make one sound. If they're a little further apart, the sound is different, and how that shapes the color and the feeling and the emotion of the tone. But I don't do these things consciously. It's a very intuitive
Yeah.
process.
Yeah. Well, you're one of the first who's ever even, most people go, I integrate all four all the time. But it's like, no, some people are more melody people, more harmony. And this is my other friend saying the three T's of music are taste, technique, and theory. You learned how to play the piano, you know the structure. How does one acquire taste?
I don't know if one does. There's no accounting for taste. Write that down. I think it's partly in a function of experience.
Yeah.
What you hear and what does things to you. I think it's really subjective. Really subjective.
Yeah.
I always say there's two types of music: good music and bad music.
Yeah.
The genre is not the issue. The genre has to do with taste. People
Yeah.
prefer, like, okay, uh, I mean, I'm not alone. I just adore, worship, idolize Sondheim.
Yeah.
And obviously, Sondheim is very popular among many, many people. But other people say, "Ugh, that's awful.
Yeah.
That's not music. That's not pretty. I don't hear any melody there." And he himself often made fun of that particular charge that there was no melody in his music. But I said it in a facetious way, but there's no accounting for taste.
Yeah.
We belong to taste cultures. And
Yeah.
if certain groups of people, well, we like that, or we like that, or we don't like this. I don't like Polish polkas, but
Yeah.
some people may be aficionados and tell me about
Yeah.
all the thousands of variations of Polish polkas.
Yeah.
So I don't worry about taste. I worry about what I like.
Yeah. Here's McLuhan in that regard. He said, song is slowed down speech. The reason cultures have different musical taste is ultimately connected to language difference. So there's two parts of that, really. Song is slowed down speech. Okay. But it's more so this taste thing. The reason cultures have different musical tastes is ultimately connected to language difference.
I would say that, I don't know if it's ultimately connected, but I would say it's deeply implicated in the same way that different cultures have different stories that they tell. And that's shaped by language and constrained by language. And language is affected by the cultural variations. And so is the story. So to me, it's all part of the same thing. That's what I thought you were going to get earlier about the education entertainment thing.
Yeah.
What I was going to emphasize was not the education in entertainment part, which is what you were asking about, but to me, that there's no such thing as just entertainment.
Yeah.
That all, as Gerbner used to say, all entertainment is educational.
Oh, that's what Marshall was saying too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So that's why I was surprised that Marshall said that in 1957.
Yeah.
That seemed a little early for him, but yeah, it's interesting. Yeah.
Very good. What's more fundamental, language or music?
I don't know, because I don't think we ever had a culture with neither one. We've never had cultures that are just musical with no language, or language no musical, unless you go back to maybe certain cave cultures. But I don't know. I would say, I say this really tentatively, and I don't know if I'll agree with it in 5 minutes, but language probably a little more because everybody uses language. Pretty much everybody. Language is nearly universally used, and not everybody uses music.
Yeah.
I think everybody could, but that's a really superficial, knee-jerk response that probably is a language a little more universal, if that makes it fundamental. I don't know.
Yeah.
I think language is more fundamental to social interaction, more fundamental to society, more fundamental to daily life.
Yeah.
But music is certainly deeply, deeply fundamental to, I'm going to hate to use the word, to the human soul.
Yeah. There you go. Tell me an instrumental that makes you laugh.
A lot of sing-song stuff. Not Carnival the Animals one, but a lot of sing-song stuff is very funny.
Good.
Gershwin has a lot of humor. A lot of humor in Gershwin.
Yeah.
The blue notes and humor. Oh, yeah.
Thelonious Monk said there are no wrong notes. Any comment?
I hit a lot of wrong notes. I know what he means by that. That any note can be. I mean, you think a note is wrong. There's a difference between hitting a note wrong by mistake, and intentionally writing a note that people say, "Oh, I don't like. That's a wrong note." So, in the sense that if you're composing or playing and doing it on purpose, there's no wrong notes. But if you here it's going to be a G minor and you hit a D sharp, like oops. That's not right there. It may be nice, but it's not the right note for what you're supposed to be doing with this performance right now.
Very good, Michael. Monk also, my friend says he heard all the same notes Charlie Parker heard, but only decided to play some of them. So he put space between notes, and he said silence is the loudest sound in the universe. In fact, George Clinton says funk is the absence of. And Miles talks about the space between notes. How do you know how to integrate silence or not playing?
I don't know, but I think about that.
Yeah.
Think about that. The John Cage piece, the 436. That's interesting. It's 4 minutes and 36 seconds of 4 minutes and 36 seconds of silence where he goes to the piano and he opens up the sheet and he sits there in silence and then he leaves. There's a song in the new show we're doing right now. We just did in Ireland, a couple of performances in Ireland. The show was written by Rosie Kane, who I've been working with for 20 years. And all our shows are about Irish women. And this is about Emily Dickinson's Irish Maid. It's called Margaret Marr, The Celtification of Emily Dickinson. And there's a song based on a very brief poem of Emily's called Silence is All We Dread.
Wow.
And it's the most gorgeous, gorgeous song that Rosie has written. And I've asked her a couple of times to incorporate silence into the song. So she'll play a little opening and then just stop. And it's a place where you think, oh, the music's supposed to keep going and the song starts, but no, it just goes to silence. It's very brief. I can remember the poem. Silence is all we dread. There's magic in a voice. I have to look it up. There's 2 more lines to it.
Yeah.
Himself have not a face is the last line. Himself have not a face.
Yeah.
But that song to me is so powerful and so emotional and so haunting. And the person who does it beautifully. So I don't know how to do silence in music, but I think about it.
Yeah.
I think I think about how it can make you hear more.
It's amazing.
Just something I've started to play with. I don't know the answer to it.
It's dynamics. It's amazing. Ruth Draper says the key is to bring the audience up onto the stage and into the scene with you. It is they who must give you even more than you give them in the way of imagination and creative power. That sounds good, but how do you do this? I mean, I've seen some video of you performing with your group, and it was amazing. How do you all bring the audience up onto the stage with you?
I don't know. I don't know if we think about. I don't think we think about it. I think we just want to be as good as we can be and do the best we can. I've never thought in those terms about bringing the audience on stage, but I
Yeah.
think it's very appealing.
Yeah.
I think we just focus on the performance, and it's not really at that conscious level of
Yeah.
bring them on stage. Just if we do it well, they'll be engaged. They'll like it. They'll clap. They'll stand up at the end.
Yeah.
But I like that image of bringing the audience on stage, of having them imagine they're in the story deeply with you. I like that a lot.
Yeah. And Leonard Cohen says the only way you can sell a concert is if you put yourself at risk. And if you don't do that, people know. What role does risk taking play in your creative process?
I find if we're doing something that is really easy and doesn't require me to really be at the top of my game, it's just I can do it with sound asleep with my eyes closed. I get really bored because I'm not being challenged.
Yeah.
And if I'm not being challenged, then certainly the audience isn't going to be challenged. Isn't going to be engaged. If I'm up there bored as hell. So in those cases, I try to pretend I'm engaged. But to me, if I'm not taking a risk, it's boring. I mean, the more challenging stuff we do, the more rewarding it is. Like, oh wow, this is tough, but I love it.
Yeah, and Viola Spolin, she kind of invented comedy improv, a social worker in Chicago who did role playing and kind of spawned second.
David, blanking on his last name. He lived around here. He started improv in Chicago.
With Viola, and then they went on to Saturday Night Live in Second City.
Yeah.
Viola really nailed it. She said, if the audience cannot see your struggle to achieve something, they cannot root for you to achieve it. Yeah. What role does struggle play in your creative process?
Same as risk. I mean, if it's easy, same as when I say if it's easy, there's no struggle, there's no risk. It's very simple. Very similar.
And then one more in music. Ben Ratliff said, I mean sound as it has long functioned among jazz players. As a mystical term of art, as in every musician finally needs a sound, a full and sensible embodiment of their artistic personality, such that it can be heard at best in a single note. So me and you could hear Miles and we go, Ben described him in 2 words, fragile and pointed. Coltrane is slightly undercooked and urgent. If a music person that you really admired was going to summarize Michael's sound in a couple words, what 2 words would you go, hey, they got it?
I think a music person would say it's rudimentary and unsophisticated.
And you like that, Tim, them call it that?
I don't see it as a compliment. I mean, I don't have illusions of grandeur about my music.
Yeah.
I mean, although I used to play this piece in college. There's a 40-minute piano piece. I have recordings of it that I played it the same every time. But I used to hear people crying during it.
Wow.
I don't know if they just hated it so much that I can't say this anymore. But no, the people were like emotionally overwhelmed by it at times.
Yeah.
It felt like. But I don't know. I don't know enough about the language of music, the formal language of music, to know how somebody would say. I don't think somebody would have very profound, rich things to say about it. It's like, whatever.
Yeah. Well, screenwriting teacher told me great art is when you can clearly see the intention of the maker. Kubrick says the opposite. Great art is when you can clearly not see the intention of the maker. What role does intention play when you're writing a Michael song or a Michael composition?
I think intention has nothing to do with the way something is perceived. It has to do, I mean, everything we can talk about the history of film, of novels, of plays. Author intent is an interesting thing to look at, but has nothing to do with how something is experienced and interpreted by an audience.
Yeah. But the same question, you studying and knowing Sondheim's music, how would he answer that? Or what's your just sort of observation of her hearing him over the years? What role did intention play in his creative process?
He had a specific story to tell. It was always about a specific character in a specific context. He always said he could never write a song. He had to
Wow.
write a song for character X in situation Y trying to do Z. And he expressed that musically. He would have not the slightest idea how to just sit down and write a song, a love song or this song. He needed to know who it was written for, what their vocal range is, what's going on in the scene, what's the story about, where does it fit in the whole arc of the musical. So intent is everything for him.
Wow. And so then Duchamp said there's no art without an audience. How much do you think of your listener when you're writing a composition or a song?
Not much.
Yeah.
I'm writing for me.
Yeah.
There's no, but you can be your own audience.
Yeah. And how about Sondheim? Do you think the same?
I don't know. I wouldn't presume. I mean, he knew he was going to have an audience.
Yeah.
I don't presume to know what went on in his brain.
You know, McLuhan says everything we invent extends some humanness, like a knife and fork extends our teeth. The shutter in a camera extends our eyelid. And even maybe philosophy or religion, non-tangible, extends consciousness. What is two things I would like you to tell me what you think extends your humanness? The piano and the golf club. What do you extend? What he called it human sensorium. What humanness are you extending with the piano?
Sound, touch, physicality.
Yeah.
I bang on the piano.
Yeah.
I treat a piano like a percussion instrument often.
Oh, yeah.
I'm extending my ability to express myself, express emotions, express moods, and to somehow create something interesting to draw people in. That there's something that makes you want to hear the next part, where it's going.
Yeah.
That there's something intriguing about it. That I'm extending my reaching out to other humans.
Yes. I like that.
Golf club, not so much.
Well, what would you say it extends?
The golf club?
Yeah.
Oh, God. Well, it used to extend my need to get away from working too hard on my teaching and research.
Yeah.
Now, as I'm getting older, like some of my other golf partners, I'm really losing my skills. It's kind of frustrating. Like, that was a good shot. It only went half as far as it used to go. Like, oh, I know what club to use from here. And I hit a really good shot. It only gets halfway there. Like, oh, crap, come on. So watching my skills deteriorate with age is expected and disheartening. And also because now I'm no longer teaching and I'm on permanent sabbatical, which is wonderful. Golf it's not the escape it used to be for me.
Yeah.
So I used to play 18 or 27 every single day. Now, this golf season's over because we don't live in California. Golf season is over here. I would just play 9 at a time, and that would be it.
Yeah.
Not every day anymore. So it's sad.
Yeah.
Like I said, nothing never changes.
That's it. Some might say, what does a golf club extend? Your hand and your arm. But, Marsha was cute in saying, what do films extend? People would say your eye or memory. He said, your foot, because you're traveling.
There you go.
Because that's a lot what you're doing with golf is you're walking. Yeah. It's really an amazing sport in that regard. So why don't we just plan a part 2, if you don't mind, Michael, down the road? It won't be till April or May. I'm all booked up, but it's really been a delight.
With this whole process, though, and what you continue to get out of it, and how often this becomes, whether this is something that becomes kind of predictable and rote for you, or whether there are surprises all the time, or whether you're still getting a lot out of it.
I'm getting a lot.
There must be a lot of repetition. Go ahead.
No, but I'm getting a lot. It's amazing. I get a lot. And also, there is some repetition. But I want to tell you one thing. What's happened is I got 150 questions, but I sort of get through about 40 and 90 for about 40 years. Now, all of a sudden, about a half a year ago, I started pulling back a little and letting them suss it out deeper, because a lot of people do say the same thing 3 times in a row because they're working it out. But sometimes I blow it because I don't allow a subtlety to come out. And that's what I'm going for, is a deeper, subtle level of, you said it earlier, I don't want them to use their stock lines. Most people have sort of their stock lines. Yeah. The guy the other day, he would just, I say silence is okay. He would milk it. He would just sit there and it was like dead air for, it seemed like 30 seconds. So I still get a lot out of it and I still get surprised. But I found that this part 2 thing caused one major thing, Michael. It's, I have to kind of review the tape because I don't want to, I go off the script. Like we got to question 16 and there were a couple that we went off script. So I have to kind of review, and it's helping me because I never listened to them in all these years in general, because I learn a lot in that one moment, in that time spent. So that's valuable to me.
The word I was going to use was script, because what's good about your questions is it gets us off our scripts.
Yeah.
Because these are not, mostly are not questions we've ever thought about before. Yeah. So you don't have the script you can pull out and say, well, yes, the answer to that is this, because it's great. It's great. I liked it. It was a lot of fun.
And I'm glad you had fun. That's the key. And, you know, one woman I'd love you to listen to sometimes, Carolyn Casey, she's been on Pacifica Radio for 20 years, and she's sort of kind of new agey, astrology, environmentalist, feminist, but she's really semiotician in an almost like comedic Alan Watts way. She's great. And I just learned so much from her for 20 years. And I kind of begged her I don't beg people, but I kind of kept bugging her over 10 years. And she finally said yes. And then I kind of blew it because I says, well, I want you to kind of jump out of your stock lines, because I've heard all her stock lines so much, they become my stock lines. And she goes, then drop your script. It was the best. Exactly. It was the best bitch slap I ever had. It was like, shut the fuck up.
I'm the interviewer. I don't have to drop my script.
But it is fun. And that's the key, is like, people go, can't we just, could I interview you? Can't we just talk and be friends first? It's like, it's an amazing way to become a friend. Yeah. So Susie wanted to say goodbye to Michael.
Hi, Susie. Great to see you.
Yeah, you are so wide awake. You are such, I'm so glad you are friends.
You are the queen of being wide awake. So you ought to know.
I'm just so impressed with like how you just ran at the beginning about Jerry's opening questions. It was just, you just killed me, because you were really, your brain is large and you really
he brings it out. It's not me. He brings it out.
Well, it is also the process of doing it is what I want to talk about. Yeah. So I want to talk about how the questions are worded, and you right away said,
just the way you broke it down was like so great, and you kept doing it. You know, you were really living during this interview.
Yeah,
cool. Yeah, I was. Have you done Susie?
She's heard him so many times.
Did one thing about the mom.
Oh yeah,
mom.
There is one on YouTube about her mother, but not officially. But she has substituted for me over the years and done all the questions to some of her friends, or some of them. But the other fun thing is Dimitri. Hearing you and Dimitri, because you two know each other, are going into part 2 now. It's going to be fun because his you know. I don't know. We only got through about 15 or 20 questions in part 1 also. So
and his brain is amazing.
It was really fun just being with all of you people. That was such a special time. So thanks again, Michael.
Thank you.
I really appreciate it so much. It was really
good luck with everything. Take care, and looking forward to talking again soon.
Good. Even though I'm going to hit the end broadcast button, I hope we can keep talking forever and ever.
Great. You take care. This was fun.
Thank you. Bye.